Greetings. Welcome to Powered by Nyame. I'm your guide and host, Kwesi Kunadu. Welcome back to another episode of Powered by Nyame. This week, our topic is mothers and mothering. And you may be curious as to why that topic and why for me. Let me begin with a story. And the story begins with yours truly. So, my mother, her name is Elaine, and she, like I, was born in the island of Jamaica. When my mother had me 18 years old, she named me Ronald, meaning wise ruler. And I didn't realize up until recently that that name held some significance, for me. Now, I thought when I got older that I would, discard that name, change my name, which I eventually did with my parents' permission. But what I didn't realize up until very, very recently is that that name holds a lot to who I really am on the other side, right? And so I'll come back to that in a moment. My mother and most of my family call me Rayon. That's the name that my mother called me since I was a baby. And my mother called me that because she said I was like silk. I felt like silk. And some of you know that rayon is a silk-like fabric. And so that's the name that she and the rest of my family use up until today. And so what I got from my mother after all these years is that from when I was young up until the present is that my mother's love, first through her breast milk and then through her care and her attention. I remember my mom and my brother, not having much to eat. My mom would make a feast out of nothing. I remember my mom, making birthdays when we really didn't have much, materially speaking, to work with and made us happy and made us joy. I remember my mom crying when I stole a few dollars from her to go play arcade games at the pizza shop next to her apartment back in central Brooklyn, Crown Heights, Brooklyn, that is. I remember my mom, feeling destroyed when first her father, my grandfather, passed away in Jamaica, and she had to go to his funeral ritual called a nine night, and then returning, and then a few months later, her brother, closest brother, my uncle Bunny, being shot and killed in his car somewhere in Brooklyn at 2 a.m. in the morning and passing away. I remember my mom feeling very much afraid for us and our safety thereafter, and not letting us being my brother and I, out of the apartment. And all that goes to show that I know what mother's love is like. I've experienced it. I've had it poured into me. I felt it, and I still feel it, even though my mother is recovering, and becoming fully whole and healthy again. And even when my mother was ill, I could still feel and sense mother's love. And because I'm her firstborn, there's a certain connection, bond between the firstborn child and their mother. So there's something about knowing and feeling my mother's pulse and how she really is inside that perhaps the second or next child doesn't have. I don't know. I'll debate that with my siblings. For now, I want to make clear to you that I know what mothering and being a mother is like, and I have felt that. And that is directly what I want to get at in this episode: mothering and mother's love, and the consequence of not having that in one's life. And so I have a friend, actually a few friends, but I'll have one in mind. I'll leave nameless. And he's a professional athlete, pro athlete, and he has shared with me stories of other pro athletes who have been swindled, out of their fortune or out of their monies by women who get pregnant by said athletes and then use the child or children as pawns, baits, weapons, you pick, to extort and to hold hostage the material gains, from those men. And these are men, in some cases, in fact, in most cases for this friend at least, who are decent men, who want to be fathers, who want to be in their children's lives. And these women, I'm not calling them mothers, these women will use those children or that child, as a weapon to essentially extort and swindle as much as they can and squeeze as much as they can via child support, via threats of visitation or lack of visitation, via other kinds of, just misuse, of a child and children to get what that person materially wants to gain. And at the heart of that sort of extortion is the absence of mother's love, in some cases, father's love as well. I'll come back to that. Now, back to me. I was married previously for 16 years, with this person for 17 years, and I've experienced the same and perhaps even more. And it took me a while to really realize this because, first thing is first, if you feel within yourself as a woman that you have it all, you have the looks, you have the shape, you have this, you have that. If you have all that and think that's going to hold or keep a man in your life, then why do you go to the extent of you and your mother and your generations using what we call obeah or science or witchcraft to tie or bound this man to you? Let me say that again. If you really think and believe within yourself that you have all these assets, right? You have the so-called looks, you have the body, you have this, you have that, and that's what got you this man, that's what's going to hold this man, then why use witchcraft and science to bind him to you? The truth is that those things will not hold him. Those things will not hold any man because your backside will get soggy, your breasts will fall down to your navel, your looks will disappear. And what happens is with people who do science or obeah or witchcraft is that they begin to look physically unattractive and ugly because truly inside their heart, that is their soul, and you know this from previous episodes of Powered by Nyame, that your heart is really your soul, that their soul is black. Black not in the color or complexion, but black as in ugly. And so they wear a lot of nice clothes and decorations and makeup and so on. And they go to the gym and they have all these things to cover and hide the ugliness. And they use that decoration, if you will, because what's really missing in them is that they didn't get mother's love. And therefore, they can't become mothers. One can have a vagina, but doesn't make you a mother. One can be the carrier of a child, full term, 8 months, 9 months, doesn't make you a mother. You're simply a carrier. The same way that one could be a sperm's donor, right? One can simply provide or supply the sperm. But if the spirit of that person is not in those sperms, if the heart and soul of the person are not in that sperm, then you're simply a carrier, simply a vessel, right? And so the same is true for mothers and mothering. That this person that was in my life for 16, 17 years, maybe a little bit more, did not get mother's love. Still doesn't have mother's love, doesn't know what love is. And I know what it is because I realized once I was able to rid myself of that spell, those spells, because there were multiple ones put on me by several of her people, is that I never really loved her, right? It was a spell. Now, I cared about her, at least what I thought was her, because that's what people who lack mother's love and father's love do. They pretend, they hide, they disguise, right? And we have an episode on pretenders, so do check that out if you haven't done so already. So it's the absence of mother's love, the absence of father's love, particularly mother's love, that is wholesome and genuine, and that shows you how to be a mother, that teaches you how to be a mother, that guides you, the spirit of how to be a mother, right? That teaches you, how to protect, your vagina, how to not be a whore, how to not have, two men coming inside of you while pregnant for the other. That teaches you that you have girl children, that you should have some self-respect, you should have some decency. If you don't want to be with one, let them know and let the other go. That comes from the absence of mother's love. Because what I discovered is that not only that the mother, also was loose and slack, but the grandmother and the great grandmother. Now, I was already years in when I found this out, but it all began to make sense in terms of this patchwork of the absence of mother's love. It's generational. It's not simply, happenstance or happens by chance. It's generational. Now, the consequence of all this is that we have daughters, right? And they're being what? Carried off, misguided, on the wrong path, not having mother's love. Worse, weaponizing. So I have not seen my daughters in 6, 7, 8 months. No phone calls. And it's through this person influence over the years because they lack father and they lack mother's love that they're not mothers. They're simply women or individuals with a vagina and breasts that weaponize the children to extort whatever they can because they lack mother's love. They're not mothers. They can't mother, right? And so um, yours truly, have not only experienced this firsthand, I've seen it in other people's lives. You see it on TV shows, you see it on sitcoms, you see it in the movies, you see it, I'm sure, among friends and family and even enemies in your community and your vicinity. So mother's love and mothering are deeply tied together and deeply important, without question. In fact, it's more vital, you can say, than mother's breast milk, because mother's breast milk is temporary, right? Mother love is not. You've got to have it in high supply, constant supply, if you will. And that mother's love is what allows you as a woman then to be a mother, not simply the possessor of a vagina and not simply the carrier of children. There's a big difference between possessing a vagina and carrying children than being a mother, right? My mother is a mother, right? My mother showed me what it is to mother and mothering. And I can tell because I was a recipient of it and I saw it in real action, especially when this person didn't have the material things to disguise and pretend to be something that she was not. Especially when my mother got ill and could not perform the same functions, she still was able to offer that mother's love. And she still does, right? In body and in spirit, right? And that's when you know mother's love is real. So even my mother is not well, her spirit still protects me, comforts me, loves me, guides me, nurtures me. And that's mother's love. And that's why mother's love is so deeply important, right? And so the key for men who are looking, and some men are afraid that they really do want to love. They really do want to have a mother that will mother their children. They really do want to have a partner that's not in it for who they are, but they're in it for what that person can provide and what that person is, right? And so there are men who, like myself, have built up, and made that woman, who is the carrier for my two daughters. And then, once things have broken down, the, the speed at which people move on tells you or confirms for you that there was never any love there, which means more deeply that person doesn't know what love is, never had love in their life, and doesn't have mother's love. Even if the mother is alive, even if the mother is present, presence doesn't equate or pour out into mother's love. Right? Mother's love doesn't come through the umbilical cord solely. It's an ongoing, constant flow and exchange, but you got to have it to give it. And that mother didn't have it. That grandmother didn't have it. The great grandmother didn't have it. So, in turn, now the keys then how to make sure that these daughters do not become the fifth or sixth generation of women who don't know how to mother, who think a man is worthless if they don't have things, if they don't have money, if they don't have status, who think that they don't need a man in their life. They don't need the compassion, care, and love of a man. Of course they do, right? We're not asexual organisms. Men and women are complements. They need each other. They do, for more than just procreation. And that's what makes mother love, because mother's love, you see, is the other part of the puzzle with father's love. And my daughters had father's love. But there were moments where, heavy moments, almost weekly or monthly, where if I went to work or if I went off to this trip or if I did this, smile in my face, but then turning the children, in this case, my daughters, against me. Remember one episode that will kind of wrap this up into a bundle that I'm sure you all will understand and get. I found a recording on my daughter's Mac laptop, and the recording was a 911 call where that woman gave my daughters a script. So one daughter is the 911 caller, the other one is the 911 dispatcher. And so the dispatcher is called and told that there's an intruder, in the house. And my daughter is upstairs, at least one daughter is upstairs, who is the one who is making the call. The dispatcher says, "We describe the person," which is my other daughter. This is role play. And my daughter, the dispatcher says, describe, tell me, what's going on, who is it? And so my daughter in the house in the role play says, well, he's wearing all black, black hoodie. He's black, meaning complexion. And, he's coming upstairs and coming to harm me or coming to hurt me. What should I do? And you can kind of use your imagination to finish out, their script. And so they were put up to do that by that woman. Who is the villain? Yours truly. And so psychologically, there is a way that, the absence of mother's love turns the very father that is there to offer the second part of the puzzle, the equation of a parent's bundle of love, into a villain. And the villain, or the bad guy, the villain is to turn those young daughters, right, into possessors of a vagina, to turn them into essentially women that will be whores, women that will be beaten up and abused by men because they would not know what it means to have a real man, a real father in their lives. Women that will essentially reproduce other possessors of vaginas without mother's love, without the ability to mother, and without the ability to and capacity to be mothers. That's what that 911 call about. To scare, literally to scare those little girls into seeing me, their father, which is a prism for other men, wholesome men, because they know their father. Their father doesn't really curse, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs, right? Is a righteous and cool dude, hardworking guy, with values, right? They know that. But by making me the villain, what that woman is doing is turning them into her or a version of her. And so they too will be without mother's love, and the cycle continues. Now, I'm not going to let that happen, but I want to make it clear to you, the viewers, that this is the consequence of intergenerational absence of mother's love, and part of that puzzle, father's love. I may do another episode on father's love, but for now, mother's love is that ongoing nutrient, both in body, in flesh, and in spirit. It has to be both, or else it's not mother's love, right? But it happens, in the womb, and it happens throughout life. And that's why and I'm sure a lot of people in the African world, African black people, do not throw away their parents into old folks' home. They keep them around. They keep them present, keep them active, because that grandmother's love is the mature version of mother's love, right? But you got to have it to give it. For Powered by Nyame, I've been your guide and host, Kwesi Kunadu, or as my family call me, Rayan. Until another time, I hope to see you all again on the episode of Powered by Nyame. In the meantime, drop your questions, your comments, your experiences, your thoughts in the comment section, your ideas for other episodes and topics that you may have in mind. And do follow up with me or follow through with me on those topics and ideas. Until then, you all stay well. Look forward to seeing you.